You have two instructional aides that work in our preschool program, and if you remember, the decision was to now increase it to Wednesdays, where Wednesdays was not a preschool day. And so that is a 1 hour increase for the IAs that work in those programs.
Funding,
One is MIPS and another one is split code for M&O and the 521
Mr.
for
Lindemann,
that.
Move
1
to
hour.
approve.
is there a second?
Second.
By Ms. Salchow. Members of the board, discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Salcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Perrin?
Yes. Item C, discussion action on the approval of classified resignation. Ms. Samaniego.
As presented for resignations, at the ESSIA, campus security at DHS, ESS instructional aide, and athletics coordinator for Douglas High School.
For discussion, let's get a motion on the floor.
Move to approve classified resignation.
Second.
Second on Ms. Salchow. Do you want to expand on that before I open it up for discussion?
No.
Members of the board, any questions or comments regarding that? Of course, as we move along and we look at vacancies and those kinds of things, is there any thought about the, actually the effective freeze that you have on any of those positions?
Yes, well, we have 4 different positions here, and so obviously, instructional aides that work with our ESS department is, we're gonna look at that and see if those are either a one-on-one or a 1 to 3 students, so we may have to bring those back. Safety being a concern, as always in Douglas High School, that is a position at DHS, so we're gonna be meeting with Mr. Ballesteros to determine if that is something we can hold off a little bit, or if we're gonna bring it back. And obviously, the athletics coordinator, which is a pretty big position that assists in the athletics department, is also an important position. So I can't tell you whether all of them are gonna be brought back, but it is something we're gonna determine on a case-by-case basis.
Members of the board, any follow-up discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Salcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Perrin?
Yes, item D, discussion information only for classified internal transfer. Ms. Samaniego.
This is just one of our health aides. Normally, she was at Paul Huber. We'll be going over to Sarah Marley, and that's just for information.
Item E, discussion action on the approval of donations received for Douglas Unified School District Number 27. Ms. Samaniego.
Okay, we have several, and 3 from Donors Choose to Sarah Marley, 5th grade, 2nd grade classroom, 3rd one to Paul Huber Middle School 7th grade classroom, and the last 2 to Clausen Elementary from the Johnson Historical Museum, and to the DHS Girls Basketball Club from Mr. Mario Dunkerley.
Mr. Lindemann.
Move to approve.
Second
Second.
by Mr. Smith. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Salcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Perrin?
Yes, item F, discussion action on the approval of removing the below-listed school from the ADA school finance system. Ms. Samaniego.
So this is, obviously, you all remember the wonderful Early Learning Center. And so still in school financial records and Power School, it's still listed as an entity. Our preschool Little Bulldogs were being housed there. And so there's this new thing, memorandum coming from ADE that all the kids listed, and it's a later section, a later item that you're going to approve as well. So this will just clean up the school financial records. So we're just removing it from the school financial records, and it needs your approval.
Mr. Lindemann.
I move to approve.
Second
Second.
by Ms. Salchow. Discussion? You want to go a little bit further on why you have to remove that from the school finance system? Mr. Sulko, did you need to explain that? No.
I can explain it. So basically, we don't want to show any school as an active school if it's no longer an active school. And so the school financial records, there's a new memorandum that came out and specifically saying this. So the Early Learning Center, while it was the name of the school was where the Little Bulldogs were being recorded for their attendance purposes. Now with this change, the Little Bulldogs have to be under the umbrella of DHS with its own entity number, and that's a later section. So now, it is not a school that's open, it is a building, but we need to, for their specific purposes, we need to remove it from school financial with your approval, and then they will remove it for us.
Okay, that
Mhm.
simplifies it. Mr. Lindeman?
I have a question of, the confusing part of this is that the Early Learning Center was on Third Street, and then it was on A Avenue, and they were both known as Early Learning Center. So now you're saying that the Little Bulldogs program was known as, I never knew it.
No, it wasn't known on there. So Power School, for attendance purposes, you know, like Ray Bahrain has its own attendance and every one of the schools. And so the Early Learning Center, which is where preschool used to be at, right? All of our preschools used to be at. And so those kids then moved into different schools, you know, Ferris and Sarah Marley and Clawson. And so the Little Bulldogs, which is under the CTE program, they're attending at Douglas High School physically. But for Power School purposes and with board approval, because we found the minutes, they were being, let's say, housed at for attendance under the premise of the Early Learning School. And so now what they want us to do, ADE, is if a student is physically attending a site, then the attendance should be linked to that school. And so with that being said, the Early Learning Center now will not house for the Little Bulldogs. They will have its own entity number issued by ADE once you approve it in another item that's here. And so, yes, I remember that Third Street used to be an Early Learning Center. And so I think AD is just trying to clean everything up for every school district. And because all of our attendance is strictly and on a daily basis submitted and it's linked, and so they want to make sure that what we're reporting is accurate.
Thank you for clarifying that, because I remember when we took it out, but it was under a different set of kids.
Mhm.
It was not part of the high school program.
So now it's going to be its own school with, under the umbrella of DHS.
So does ADE have known all these years that it was different building sites?
I can't
No.
speak for the early learning once it was at Third Street, but we have information when it was, when the Little Bulldogs were still housed under preschool, for preschool under the Early Learning Center. We have those minutes, and that was submitted to ADE back then, so. So I'm assuming yes, Mr. Lindeman.
Quite convoluted.
Yes.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Elcha?
Yes,
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Bahrain?
Yes, item G, discussion action on the approval of naming the preschool program at Douglas High School at the Douglas High School Early Education Preschool, Ms. Samaniego.
Yes, and so again, here's the item that I'm talking about. Now, once you approve this, Douglas High School Early Education Preschool will have its own entity number. And all the kids that attend the Little Bulldogs program, we're still gonna refer them to as the Little Bulldogs for mascot purposes or the program itself. But when we do attendance and in Power School, it will be the Douglas High School Education, Early Education Preschool. And that's what it's gonna be called, and it's gonna have its own entity number. But they attend that school within Douglas High School, and it's their CTE program. And so that's coming from school finance. The other part that we have to do is Alma has to get working on these board minutes for this meeting ASAP. And then we have to come back and approve the minutes, probably another special board meeting, so that ADE can make those changes, because they will not make the changes until I have a signed board minutes approval. So that's what this means.
Any further discussion?
I should get did I make a motion yet?
No motion.
Yeah, I move to approve.
Second.
Is there any further discussion?
I just wanted to then ask, when the preschool program is at different sites, how is that gonna be recorded
They're recorded under that school.
in that school?
Yes, So, you have another item, coming up, and so the school is it's gonna be a pre-K. Sarah Marley will be let's say K-5, Ferris K-5. Stevenson, it's a pre-K-5 school. So,
Okay, thank you.
that's how that goes.
Mr. Smith?
No, I have nothing.
Ms. Elchel?
No.
Mr. Ramos?
No.
Mr. Lindeman, any further discussion?
that's fine.
Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Elcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Thank you. Oh, excuse me, yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes. Item H, discussion action on the approval of removing preschool as a grade offered at 3 of the elementary schools, beginning with the 2025-26 school year. Ms. Amaya.
Yes, and so, this is what I was referring to, this is again cleaning up a school finance, system. And so Clausen Elementary, Ferris Elementary, and Sarah Marley Elementary will be identified, as, K-5 schools because we're not offering. And so at any given point that we are able to offer preschool again at those sites, I'll have to come back to the board, have you approve the, reintegration of preschool, get the board minutes approved, and then they will make that change. They just want us to show exactly on Power School what grades are being offered.
Mr. Lindeman,
Move to approve.
second
Second.
by Ms. Salchow. Further discussion, Mr. Smith? Any more thoughts on that?
No.
Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Elcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes, item I, discussion action on the approval of the second reading of Policy Services Advisory. Ms. Samanego, I'll just let you handle it.
Okay, so this is our second reading for a technology device cell phone policy, which bans cell phone or anything that is related to an electronic device. I did add the changes as discussed and directed by the board from within our own internal cell phone policy, which is that cell phones must be turned off prior to entering the campus. There is an exception that may be made for students with a documented medical need as approved by the school administration and supported by a licensed health provider. It's the 4 offenses, and we included the word smartwatches there as a notification that it could still be one device that if students are caught texting, using the cell phone device, the smartwatch, that can be one of the devices that can be confiscated. But I did make the changes as per your guidance.
Get a motion on the floor.
I move to approve.
Second?
Second.
Mr. Lindeman had mentioned at the last meeting something about some type of a declaration or a notification in the handbook.
Yeah.
Were you able to do that?
Yes, so as soon as we get this approved, I needed your approval before we send it to the admin, and then they will either include it in their student handbooks or give a notification. We're gonna share it with our families. We also will have a form that parents will have to sign. And so the form will indicate this exactly, the cell phone policy internal. They will have, I acknowledge I received and understand, student signature, parent signature, date it, and it will be given to every school.
And I'm thinking that this should be in addition to, they understand the technology policy,
Yes, no.
And my question or my concern was that I think the handbooks are already being printed. And so does this have to be an insert then?
It may have, I'm not sure where everybody is, but I think everybody was waiting specifically for this. So I think as soon as we got this meeting, they were gonna do that next week.
Okay.
And the following, so
Thank
we
you.
should be good.
Okay, do you have anything else any of the administration wants to add on this? I'd like to ask the principals. They've had enough time to think this over. We had an extensive discussion regarding this the last time. Any afterthoughts or anything else that you people, the ones that are gonna work directly with us, have any afterthoughts or any type of a narrative that you think the board should hear before we adopt this tonight? Any one of the principals? Melissa? And then we'll open it up for discussion with the board.
Good afternoon, Board President, board members, and District Admin. So just one thing that I want to maybe get clarification on is the smartwatches. We haven't had I just want to let you know, we never had an issue with the smartwatches per se, as much as a cell phone and the earbuds. Those are the biggest things that we've had challenges with. I don't know but any of you have a smartwatch. I mean, yes, text messaging can happen, but in terms of a big concern that we have is pictures and videos being taken. The smartwatch cannot do that. So I would just, I know Mrs. Samaniego kind of mentioned, like,
If it becomes
if it becomes an issue or they're using it, then definitely we'll address it, but, I mean, we all wear them. So that was my only concern. I know it's gonna be a challenge, so another thing I wanna make note of, and I know you guys, weekly receive the, suspension report. Don't be surprised if there's an increase on, discipline regarding cell phones. I just wanted to give you guys a heads up on that.
Just for clarification on the smartwatch, wasn't that all inclusive in the statute? It said any wireless
Yes.
Yeah.
device.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
So,
Yeah, so we-
your point, Melissa, is that you've never had any issues with it, and
No.
you were just concerned of how you were gonna handle that?
Yeah, I mean, no, it's one thing, I know the phone, we can say turn it off and put it away, but, I mean, do we just not allow them to wear them or bring them? Because since we're making phones be put away, a smartwatch, it's
Mhm.
like, well, do we just say don't bring them at all? That was my only concern, but I wanted to make a point that we've never had an issue with the smartwatches in the past. It's always been the phone or the headphones or earbuds. So, you know,
But
I
it
don't-
could
I-
become the focus now, because the smartwatch will do almost everything the phone will, right?
well, in all honesty, my biggest concern is now gonna be the laptops, the devices. Cause everything they used to do on their phone, now they're just gonna either, use a tablet or the device that they have to bring to school. That's gonna be more of my concern, is what happens on those devices.
Members of the board, any question, dialogue regarding that, Mr.
Yeah,
Ryan?
yeah, if I may. I think we remember that last meeting when we discussed this, there was gonna be a grace period.
Yeah.
Of some sort. You know, personally, I am a fan of the restorative justice, and I don't wanna see a whole bunch of suspensions just because of a little technicality. That's gonna interrupt the education of the student, and I wouldn't wanna see that.
No, I mean, if it's to our discretion, then we'll definitely address it when needed. But I just kinda wanted to mention that to you guys.
Members of the
And
board?
and
Mr.
I
I
Smith?
wanted to comment on the smartwatches too. You have to kind of keep in mind the way that they operate. The vast majority of them are linked
To
to
the
the
phone.
telephones. Unless they have a separate telephone line and a separate plan for the watch, then it's linked to the telephone. If the telephone is off, they're not gonna be receiving the messages. So it takes care of the problem.
So I think the conversation, Mr. Bahrain, during the last meeting when because Mr. Smith, you were the one that brought up the smartwatch because
Right.
it's, for like medical
For
reasons,
medical
right?
needs.
So
right.
we added it, Mrs. Rodriguez, because we had a discussion internally at my retreat with the team, and we didn't have it because it wasn't a problem. But I don't think, if I get direction from the board, my interpretation is if you don't have to ban, people from bringing it, but if it becomes a problem
Then we
where
can-
they're not turning off their phone and they're saying, yes, teachers will be able to tell that, hey, they're texting or they're getting messages on their phone, that's why I think it's important it's there in the
Yeah.
event that you can address it and say, look.
Melissa, just arbitrarily right now, you don't have any idea, any percentage of how many kids at the high school would even have a smartwatch, do you? Or-
There's I would say maybe like 30%.
Really?
So not everybody that has a cell phone has a smartwatch. Yeah, so
Yeah.
there's not,
Well-
I would say about 30% of kids that have a phone have a smartwatch. Not very many.
Well, I know when I come to a meeting, I turn off my phone and I leave my watch at home because it's not necessary to have while we're here. And I also know that with my phone, I can send an auditory text. I'm at my watch, I can say,
Yeah.
and text with just speaking to it. So, I don't know, it's kind of a slippery slope.
Well, actually, the only person on this dais up here that can afford one is Ms. Samaniego. I just looking around and see she's the only one that has one, so, no.
I don't have
kidding.
GPS on it, so if I step away, from Alma's office to mine, it doesn't get.
Anything else, Melissa?
No, that was all I wanted to point out, and yes, it's gonna be a challenge. But we're ready for it. I mean,
And
it's not much different in terms of the cell phone procedures that we already had. There was a couple tweaks that we did as a team at the retreat. It's just, to be honest, it's gonna be the out of class time, the transition, the lunchtime. That's gonna be a huge challenge. Hence, I do need that other security officer if we're gonna, buckle down on the phone use, because that is really when the phone is used the most, is during passing periods and during lunchtime.
Thank you.
Okay.
And
Any of the other administrators back there, principal, building level principals, want to make any comments regarding that before we have the final vote here?
Good evening, members of the board, Mrs. Samaniego, Mr. President, and admin, as well as future fellow admin, the public. Here at the middle schools, we have already instituted. We do have a cell phone policy. Not only are they not allowed to use it during the classroom, but also between passing periods, they're not allowed to use it, as well as at lunchtime. So we have posted all along, not only in the classrooms, but in the hallways and the cafeteria, no cell phone use. Their first offense is a warning. The parents do have to pick up the cell phone. Second offense, again, the parent has to pick up the cell phone. What we changed this year for the third offense is we actually gonna bring in the parent, talk with this parent, have a conference with the parent. What we're doing, and I know you're concerned with suspensions and so forth, that's why it's at the discretion of administration. But we are, every quarter, we do log and keep track of those referrals, and every quarter it's kind of like a reset. But however, if the kids continue thinking, oh, well, we can get away with it again, that's why it's at the discretion of our discretion. I have not, up until now, I don't know, I can't speak for Huber, but I have never suspended a student due to cell phone use. Usually by the third time, the parent is so fed up that they're having to come in to pick up the phone. It's one of two things. Either the phone stays with us for the entire year, and at the end of the year, they'll come pick it up, or they don't pick it up at all, or they leave it, they don't allow the student to bring it to school. You have the answer?
No, good afternoon. It's the same thing, exactly the same. We haven't had, like I said, we haven't had a lot of issues with the cell phones, but we're following the same thing.
Kind of on the heels of what Mr. Lindeman said, when Melissa was speaking, he talked about, he didn't want to see a lot of suspensions, but I think when you look at the school ambiance anyway, and you look at your faculty, you look at your staff, I think this is just gonna become a component of that as to who is going to establish themselves in the classroom with the students first and who's not. And I think all of you guys know very well that anytime you have a problem teacher that has problems with discipline, is because they can't even initially establish the discipline in the classroom. And I hope that's not gonna be the situation here where it gets away from those teachers that have a difficult time anyway, because there's gonna be a parade back and forth to the office. And as Mr. Lindeman said, hopefully you guys are gonna have, there's gonna be a lot of discretion built in there as to how you handle that based on how well you know your staff and how they react to it. So I just wanted to make that comment because you're right. And initially it's gonna be tough, especially with those difficult teachers anyway.
And just a reminder that, we did talk about a grace period. Of course, we all know that day one, you're not going to start enforcing it, but giving, Mrs. Rodriguez, we talked about, I don't know, we can certainly meet when we meet next week on PLC and talk about, okay, do we give it 2 weeks or 3 weeks? Because you're the one that's really gonna be the one that's gonna have more of the pushback from the students than any other school, so.
I know for the middle schools, I don't think we'll have much
No.
pushback, because we've been implementing it now. I've been
Yeah.
at Raybury now for 5 years, and I've not had any. During parent orientation and student orientation, that's what we do discuss with them, and.
I
not
just
had
wanted
any
to
pushback.
add, you're implementing this, new policy that we're gonna do, and all the teachers, we're gonna have, the first year's gonna be rough. But once the kids and the parents get used to it, the younger kids that are coming up, they're gonna know that it can't be done, it's gonna be a lot easier. I just hope that you don't have that much trouble and it transitions well.
I have a question, just very quickly, and this is for Ms. Rodriguez too. Okay, when we talked about like a grace period and on it, this is for you too. With a grace period, it will be enforced from day one, won't it?
Yes.
Okay, so it's
Yes.
not like, because that would be the most horrible thing, is for parents to come back and say, look, you gave them 2 weeks using their phone or having their phone, so
No, no, no.
nobody.
It would be
So it's
enforced
just
since day
immediately.
one. It is the
Okay.
disciplinary action and the reminders that we're gonna, hey, we are, we're gonna be communicating this obviously since, starting Monday. But the grace period, meaning we're not gonna go in and, okay, we see you on day one, we're gonna take it away, go to the office. It's a reminder of, this is a no cell phone policy. It's implemented since day one.
And when they register, it
Yes,
will
that
be
information will be
spoken to them. I mean, I know the poor registrar is going to be so tired of saying, please remember, there'll be no cell phone use.
Well, and we're all having orientation meetings as well, so in addition to the meeting Mrs. Samaniego had with
Parents.
the parents in the community, at all our schools, we're having orientation meetings that we will also
Wonderful.
be, and like we said, part of the registration packet will, so our handbooks will have it, and they'll have a contract basically saying this is the policy signed by the parent and the student, that will also be given as well.
Thank you very much. Members of the board, anything else? Anybody else before we call for the question and before this thing gets put into effect? Members of the board, nothing else? Administration, anything you want to add? Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Alcha?
Yes,
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Burry?
Yes. Item J, discussion information on the U.S. Department of Education federal funding hold. Ms. Samaniego, if you just kind of give a brief overview about what we're looking at, and then I'm sure it's going to stimulate a lot of conversation. So let's let you give a recap of exactly what's going on with that.
Okay, so we, again, have received a little bit of what we call a hiccup to public education, but this information came after sometime last week, and I felt it was important to share it. So the U.S. Department of Education has placed a hold on all federal funding, including Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV, due for further budget review and analysis by the Department of Education at the national level. And so what does this mean? It means that the grants are on hold, affecting every district in the nation right now. ADE has confirmed, and part of the information I provided to you in your background is what I received from ADE. They don't have any additional guidance. They're not saying do this or do that. They're just saying this is what we have up to date. You may continue to submit your fiscal year 26 applications, but at this point, no reimbursements can be drawn until federal obligations are in place. Well, what does that mean? We can.
I want you to hold that thought, and probably shouldn't have started that conversation because we were so close to 4:30. But we're going to recess the special meeting, and we're going to go into a public hearing, and hopefully we can get back to this subject quickly. So, Alma, roll call for the public hearing.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Ms. Alcha?
here,
Mr. Lindemann?
Here.
Mr. Ramos?
Here.
Mr. Burry?
Here. Item B, call for public hearing pursuant to ARS 15-905 on fiscal year 2025-26 district annual expenditure budget. And number one, at the time of the hearing, the board, through its appointed representative, shall present the budget to persons attending the meeting. Upon request from any person attending the meeting, the budget shall be explained. Any resident or taxpayer may protest the inclusion of any item in the budget. The board may choose to discuss the action at this time to remove the protested item from the budget. If any member of the board has a conflict of interest as defined in ARS 38-502 to the specific item protested, the member shall not vote on that specific item. C, presentation of the 2025 year, school year 26 proposed budget. With that, Mr. Soto, just as outlined in the agenda item, a brief overview of the budget, and then we'll go into public comments.
Correct. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, board members. Again, we have the proposed budget in our regular meeting on July 1st, where we kind of like went into deep of the whole budget. Just an overview, and as a reminder to board members and the public, we're proposing the budget with last year's forms. Again, as everybody knows, the legislature approved the budget at a later time than normal. That is not as normal anymore, but anyways. And we were, forced to use the forms from last year. And by law also, once we propose the budget, we have to use the same forms. Once everything is up and running, we're gonna come back and do a budget revision, most likely in the month of September, once we have everything available. Let me see. And again, I know we talked about it in the previous meeting, but this current budget is based on an ADM of 3,380.6833. That is giving us a budget capacity of, on the M&O side, of $25,259,481. In the capital fund, we have a new allocation of 1.6 million, 1,659,236, with a carryover of 995,000. So we're gonna have a budget limit of 2.6 million, 2,654,290. Again, we talked previously a little bit about the property tax. We don't have anything yet because again, that comes in the month of August when the county approves that. But we're looking at potentially reducing the property tax for this coming year. So with that said, and so the per pupil allocation for what it's based here is last year's, which is $5,013 per student. Once we do the amendment, the budget revision, the new allocation for school year 2026 is $5,113.26. So $100.26 more than what last year was. So with that.
That explanation was for the purposes of the public hearing, and then we'll get into further discussion when we get to the actual
Item.
adoption later on in the agenda. So we're open for discussion. Members of the public, did anybody formally sign a form?
No, sir.
So let's give it a few minutes and see if anybody's interested in addressing the board. If not, we'll continue with the regular agenda. Continue. If somebody were to come in later, then we'd have to let them address the board regarding the item itself, which would be certainly amenable to the budget hearing process. So we're going to adjourn the hearing, and we're back into the regular agenda, on the special board meeting. And Ms. Samaniego, if you'd continue with your explanation of the federal programs, please.
Okay, so where I left off is information that we have received from ADE. So they have just provided for us, the only guidance is you may continue to submit your applications, and what does that mean? It's just, you just may continue to operate for fiscal year '26, but you cannot submit for any reimbursement of those funds that you are drawing, and until the hold is lifted. The other part is, anything from July 1st on, we may be reimbursed retroactively. So let's say the hold is uplifted in October. We can then start doing the reimbursements starting from July 1, back into DUSD for those following grants. So the impact is as follows. It's a total for us, for this Arizona, it's $134.3 million. But what does it imply for us? For us, it's a shortfall. If the monies don't get lifted, if the funding doesn't go through, it's $623,963.17. Title I is not impacted. I can guarantee you that was a first concern, because if that was one, that is a lot of our salaries come out of Title I. So that one is not impacted. The aspect of Title I that is, it's called Title I-C, and that is our migrant program. The hold for that is, the impact is $43,469.60, because we have two positions that are paid either a portion of their entire position. And so what that means for us is 43. The hold under that one is about $49,000. Title II is what's known as, supporting effective instruction, professional development of teachers and principals. It supports PD, recruitment, retention of effective teachers and principals. That's what Title II does. And so under that, we have the new teacher induction program and any professional development that we can pay from that funding. That impact for us would be $163,796.85. Our Title III, which is for all of our ELL services, and supporting our ELL students, supporting our ELL teachers. And we have one position under that, and that is a shortfall of about $97,456.72. Title IV-C, which is our 21st Century program, and it was, Joe Carlson is the only school that has 21st Century, and this would be year two, right? Year two. The impact for that is $160,000. And so with 21st Century, I want you to just foresee what's gonna happen. If we don't have anybody starting in that position, on July 30th as a teaching position, because that's an after-school program. While we do hire a coordinator, we hire teachers to, teach the extracurricular and the enrichment activities. If the program doesn't get funded, then the program goes away. It doesn't mean we're firing people. It means the program will not happen, and those people that are already employed in the district will not have that extra opportunity to earn extra income. And so the huge impact there would be students, because students really enjoy the 21st Century program. And then the Title IV grant is the safety and well-rounded. So that allows us to hire people to provide. What we've done with that money is our elementary schools had, PE and had music and art, and those were all by either an IA. So our plan for this year, we were gonna hire one certified music teacher, which resigned already. They approved her resignation. So then we were gonna take that funding of that salary and then hire 2 more classified support staff for a total of 5. So our plan was for each elementary school to have 1 person under the safety and well-rounded to support teachers, so they could have planning period and supports kids and have either PE or art or, music. So that impact there is $159,240. Now, mind you, we did not move on hiring people under the safety and well-rounded, because when this information came through, Mrs. Cox was already gonna start doing interviews for that. So right now, we don't have anybody hired under those positions. So it's not like we're having to let go of people if that money doesn't go through. So within all of those funds, we've been meeting extensively, and which we have to, because we have to look at what other funding sources do we have, in the event that this money doesn't come through. And yes, we all know that if you're funded by a grant and that money goes away, it is most likely that the position goes away. So we all know that. We've said it many times, for those of us who have been in grant-funded positions, and sometimes there was money, sometimes there wasn't, you had to go back into the classroom. So that is a fact. And so my job with my team was to look at the impact. And so what, in terms of money, that's what you have, $623,000 if all of that was encumbered and it would go away. What it really, the true impact, as I shared with you in the bottom, is we have carryover coming in from Title I. We have money that still hasn't been spent in Title I. And so we discussed the 4 positions, because it's really 4 positions that we're talking. We're talking the 2 under Title I-C and the Title I-2 under the new teacher induction PD and Title III. So it's a total of 4 positions that are deeply impacted in terms of people that have already been hired to do those jobs. And so in looking at our funds, we know definitely we can't put them in M&O. Okay, that is a no-no, because our M&O is not in a healthy position, and we always have to assure that we're not falling into a supplanting issue. So when you move somebody from a title into M&O, and then let's say the money were to come back in September, in October, in December, and then says, oh, now I can relieve the M&O and put it back, we can't do that. That's called supplanting. However, you can move people within grants. Okay, I can put somebody, some of our teachers even, or even some of our non-teachers that are certified staff, some of the coaches are split coded. Many of the coaches, you're not paid 1 FTE out of 1 grant. You're like 20% here, 30% here, 40% here. And so that already happens. So we looked at all of our grants. We looked at what Title I could support, knowing the money that's still available to us. And after discussion with my team, we feel, and under my contingency plan, is that we could continue without making any changes right now. It is early on. We don't know what the decision is going to be from the U.S. Department of Education. But knowing that our Title I, we can sustain those 4 positions in the event that we needed to in order to carry forward for the rest of this year, we feel comfortable in knowing that that can be sustained for this year. However, that is a decision that if I get guidance from the board and saying, well, we don't want you to do that, we want to look at other options, because the concern is, what if next year, let's say there is less Title I, and we know that even the grant funding is based on enrollment. And so we've met with Mrs. Moen, who is newly to the team, but Mrs. Herrera has been involved since she got the information, so we've been talking to Mrs. Herrera as well. And to Mrs. Sonia, Marco, who works in the grants as a grants coordinator. And the shortfall in the end, because we met again today, but you already had this. So we have approximately right now about $412,344.40, including the potential carryover of $290,000. In addition to, there are some remaining funds that Mrs. Barcelo and Ms. Moen and Marco will go over and kind of clean up what's fiscal year 25 and seeing what extra money is still there, because we are looking, today we discussed about $600,000 that they're still having to encumber and figure out if that number is accurate. So there may be potentially more money than the 412 in Title I. And so knowing that 4 people can be put into Title I itself, that is an allowable thing, and it wouldn't happen unless the grant got revised and approved by the specialist and by the director. So we don't do anything unless it's director approved. And so knowing that those funds are there, that we can use them, we do also have to be cognizant of tutoring, which is there's some money already in Title I that was set aside for tutoring. Summer school is also something that gets paid out of Title I, and so we want to really reserve monies for those programs as well, because they're important. And, Title II is part of, is it Title II or Title III? No, Title III is part of also to be able to pay for tutoring. And so after today's meeting, we had said, considering that all those programs that I mentioned in the positions, the shortfall would be 331,196. But that's including the 21st Century Program, the 160, which we haven't hired, you know, we don't have to have the program if we don't have it. We're not firing anybody if we don't have the program, except we couldn't have the program. So that's considering the 160 for 21st Century. So removing the 21st Century, we're really looking at $203,000 and $196 of a shortfall in order to sustain those 4 positions for this year. And I hope I didn't confuse you too much. But that is the state of the U.S. Department of Education and how it is affecting DUSD.
That's a great overview on the objective observations that are made by the staff. The thing the board needs to reconcile is the hold is on specific programs, very specific. If we were to give her the direction without officially doing it, just giving her some type of guidance on how to proceed, the thing that this board needs to keep uppermost in our mind is, number one, if we were to tell her to proceed and they're getting no guidance at all from ADE. ADE isn't given any opinion or anything because everything is in flux. Nobody knows what's happening. And it's the state of the state anyway with all the things that are happening in Washington. But the point is that if we were to give her direction and say, go ahead with that contingency plan, and the specificity of those 3 programs that were targeted by the Department of Education were specifically those programs that are impoverished, programs that are based on poverty level. And correct me if I'm wrong, but a school district, I think in order to qualify for, is it 40%? What is the percentage of the qualification for Title I? 40%?
Of free and reduced?
Of free and reduced.
Okay, so if you look at at those programs, it's targeting the programs that the present administration is already looking at anyway. The SNAP program, all of the programs that you're looking at, it's targeting the impoverished. And the situation here is that if we were to say, or to give her guidance and come back and then later approve it, that we allow her to put those positions in Title I, are we circumventing, and could the department come back and say, you're gonna get an audit exception or finding because you manipulated that budget and you found a way to fund those 3 programs that we specifically said we're holding the money on. But if the administration goes through with that contingency and they do fund those programs out of Title I because they have enough carryover and they have enough money, then that could be a problem. The other thing is, how long do we give her the discretion to go beyond the funding? This year, of course, is safe because the money's there. If they had the hold on past September, if the hold continues and we continue with those people in that program and they come back and have a finding and say you circumvented what we wanted you to do because you continued to fund those programs that we said were on hold, now we're gonna have an audit finding, and you're gonna have, and this is not unusual, that they make school districts pay the money back. So that's what we're looking at. That's the dilemma that this board looks at. They're looking at, and I'm not talking specifically about any staff members or I'm just talking about the reality of the logistics of what we're looking at. So what the problem could be with her, with the administration is, if they come back with that recommendation and there's no relief in sight within the next couple of weeks, and we get into the September in the new budget, and we have those people in Title I, then I'm not gonna reiterate what I said, then this board is running the risk of them compromising or having a compromise where we come back and the department says, because the ADE doesn't even know what's going on. When I say the department, I'm talking about the Department of Education in Washington, because ADE doesn't know what's going on. So that's for discussion. And I just wanted to give, the binary, both sides of the story. So any discussion, questions, or reaction regarding the overview that was given by Ms. Samaniego? Mr. Smith?
No, I really don't. I can see where the cuts are being, taking place. I know this is one of the things that we've been looking at and trying to figure out. I don't think we should in any way try and move people, do like you were sitting there saying that might come back and bite us later if they say, especially if they look at it, well, you're trying to work around where we're purposely trying to, lower the funding in these certain situations.
And that's the point I want to make, because as Ms. Samaniego explained very well, she has the authority to move people around
Right.
in those grants, with the exception that they were very, very specific on the programs that they wanted cut.
Right.
And if they continue to fund those programs, and the Department of Education, Arizona, ADE, doesn't know what they're doing, and they come back later and said, you know what, you did that, and now we're hearing from Washington, you shouldn't have done it because they wanted you to specifically cut those, you owe us that money. That's, me always being extremely cautious, because I've dealt with that stuff personally so long that, and they could be perfectly fine. It could work out perfectly fine, but it could come back and do that other.
And I think it's better
All
if
right.
we don't get into that.
Because we don't know. There's
Right.
too many unknowns. Ms. Salcho.
Okay, knowing about migrant education or the migrant program and about Title III, does that mean then that if the hold continues, that we are no longer required to do what we normally have to do, like OLS or Azella testing, no providing any type of assistance for students who are ELL or EL?
So to answer your question, I'm just gonna use gifted as an example.
Okay.
So gifted doesn't get any funding.
No,
And you
we're
know
poor-
that.
They're poor.
But we have to provide gifted services to our
Mm-hmm.
students. And so this is a conversation that we had, Denise, who ran grants before, knows this too well. With migrant, or let's say McKinney-Vento, we have to have a liaison. So we have to have it no matter what. We don't get specific funding for it.
Tell
So
me
I'm.
what McKinney-Vento is.
McKinney-Vento is our homeless, children, or McKinney-Vento Act. So I'm assuming, based on previous knowledge and experience with our programs that are mandated, if the funding goes away, we're still gonna have to have ELL. We're still gonna have to follow the Azella, the targeted, and we're still gonna be held accountable to do everything from the state without money to do it.
Because the way I looked at it is that those are programs that would be cut as well. I mean, I'm not saying I want that, definitely don't. I mean, we have students who, desperately need, the English language instruction. And I realize that this is across the United States, this is not just us. And we are not a bilingual ed state, we are an immersion state, which puts us in a different category, period, than many other states. And, I don't know.
May I make a, so we have another grant called the SCI grant, the Structured English Immersion.
But that one, it wasn't touched, was it?
That one didn't go away.
How
So
funny.
that to me, it was cut a little bit, but that to me tells me that they're going to insist that we continue with these programs, even though we don't have the funding.
Is that it for now, for you, Ms. Salcho? Mr. Lindeman?
What question came to my mind was that when we have the well-rounded Title IV there, do we fund the elementary libraries out of that? Or is that something different?
No. They, really elementaries have a library, but they don't get any funding specifically for that or
Okay,
to get a library.
it's our IAs
Yeah,
that do that.
Yeah. Or even our teachers using the library.
Okay, so that
Mhm.
is safe.
Yes.
Okay, well, that was my question.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes, so Ana, you feel that we strongly need to continue these programs? And, should we get hit back, as Mr. Moraine was saying, that we have to pay back that money, how much of an impact would it be to us in the future for that? We have to pay that money back.
It will be the 203,000 that we just talked about, that's what the bottom line will be for us to pay back if they ask for that money back, right, for those?
If that, I think that were to, with Mr. Moraine's concern, if it were to be an audit, that, we moved, these positions into the Title I, and then that we would be audited and say, oh, no, you can't do that. I think that's what it would be if we were audited and we would be found to have, I don't wanna say misappropriately used the fund, but just put people in the Title I to continue supporting teachers who are new to the district, for example, the new teachers. We still need to provide them new teacher induction, regardless if there's funding or not, we still need to do it. And we need to do it as best professional development within the means that we have. So that would be the case if it were an audit, finding. My conversations with Mrs. Cox, who has extensive experience in the grants, and also with Mrs. Herrera, and newly with Ms. Moen, is that what our plan, our contingency plan is something that is doable, something that it is allowed. And Mrs. Herrera, since you've just recently retired from that program, if you can come up, if because I've talked with her
No, we
prior
wanna
to
have an
them.
open
Okay.
discussion, we
Okay.
wanna have a very open discussion regarding it.
Because we've done this where coaches are split coded, for example, and even our teachers who are partially Title I funded and all of that. So if you can give us your thought process and.
Okay, good evening, board members, Mr. Brain, board president, and admin. What specific questions do you have about moving people? Because I know quite a bit about what's in those grants right now.
Well, I think if the concern of the board is whether it would be an audit finding if we moved from, this position into Title I, which is our contingency plan.
When Marco and I wrote those grants, back in April, because they did come in late, one of the positions that was already moved into the Title I grant was a Title III EL coach position. So that position, one of them is already there. The second EL coach position was out of Title III. And to answer your question, Mrs. Selcho, the Supreme Court ruled that we must have EL services, period. But they don't have to be funded. That's the downside. As far as moving the new teacher induction coach, which was paid out of our Title II grant, like Mrs. Samaniego said, we did look at those numbers, and there is money there. So there's two different sides to this grant. There is a district side, and there is a site side. So one of the conversations was taking a look at, could we move that fiscally responsible, that position into the set aside, which is the district side of it. So this year, when the Title I grant came in, it was much different than it was in years past. So set aside number 11 specifically was for professional development. So that is already in the grant. And that is where I put the Title III EL coach, because they do professional development. And of course, our school improvement specialist is there. Now, running those numbers in the set aside, Mrs. Cox would say, yes, we could put them there, or maybe we put them on the site side. That all depends. As far as 21st Century goes, unfortunately, none of those positions could go into the Title I grant. We would just unfortunately lose that program. And like Mrs. Samaniego said, tutoring is already there, a very scaled back version of it, because we never receive our full allocation up front. It's piecemeal. You get a little bit now, you get your carryover, and then come January-ish, you get to receive your second allocation. So on top of the fact that they've already run the numbers, and there's 200 and I believe 90-some thousand dollars that I had put in there, knowing that we could get it carried over. You're also probably going to be receiving a second allocation come January, between January and May. Now, this year for fiscal year 25, our second allocation came in, it was, I think, a week before the end of school. It was like the third week of May, and we got that in there. So as far as moving positions into Title I, I don't foresee that it would be an audit finding, because they did change the Title I grant this year to include professional development. So as far as moving that position, yeah, the Title III person, I did move one of those into Title I already. And what was the other position? Oh, the the migrant position. I am not sure how they're going to handle migrant Title I-C, to be honest. We do have a small migrant population here in our district. And we do have two staff people who are partially funded out of that grant. Those two positions, it would be up to administration as to how they would want to work those two positions. But yeah.
When you said, you mentioned 21st century, if, just theoretically, if you were to, and of course, that's way down the line, and that'd be an easy one, because you can address it, because it's not, the immediacy is not there as these are. But if they specifically said, like they did, that those funds were cut, and then you decided that you were gonna put all of that staff in that program in Title I because you had the carryover, just theoretically, all right. But if you were to put those, let's say that personnel in there, and they said that program's gone, just think about that a minute. And now, again, specifically targeting migrant ed, and if you were to put the personnel for migrant ed in there, and they specifically said, we're holding those funds, you don't think you'd get an audit exception on that if they came in and said, we specifically told you we held that money and you used it anyway? That's just the issue that I see could happen, especially in light of the fact that ADE doesn't know what's going on either. Because as you well know, they get audited. They get audited by the feds. And they could have an audit finding too, but that's another level. But that could happen. So just respond to that about the 21st century and the migrant ed.
21st century, you cannot move them into Title I. The issue with that grant is going to be, it's a time-bound grant. When that grant is written, we are required to meet X number of days. And I don't have that number off the top of my head, but typically that program starts the Tuesday after Labor Day and goes until the second or third week of May. And then they're also required to have 16 days during summer school. Now, the issue with that grant could be if we don't start it, if we're funded, by that date, the first Tuesday in September, then we would run into the issue of being out of compliance with the grant itself and the number of days, which could potentially mean we would have to push that May date, maybe literally till the last day of school, to actually get those days, plus the 16 days during the month of June. That would be the only concern I would foresee for 21st century, but Mrs. Samaniego and I have talked about, we don't hire people when things are not approved, director approved. That grant was specialist approved and director approved. I personally spoke to the director myself, but because that is one of the grants that is being placed on a Now,
Hold.
it's a hold. That means we are holding
starting.
off on hiring anyone until that. And then, and I don't make assumptions, but I would have to say ADE or somebody who's in charge of that 21st Century Grant may have to adjust the
The
days within the grant itself. Now, that grant itself right now for this next fiscal year, you were looking at $120,000. And that was to pay the coordinator, the teachers, the IAs during the school year and during the summer. And I believe there was also a field trip in there. As far as migrant goes, there are 2 people in that migrant grant. Neither one of them is fully funded out of that migrant grant, neither one. One of them is partial M&O, partial McKinney-Vento, which is in Title I. So we are required by law to fund, we're not required by law to fund them, but we're required to have somebody. Title I grant allows us to pay for that person's salary out of that grant. And then that would be a conversation that Mrs. Samaniego, Mr. Soto, and Mrs. Cox would have as far as, you know, if the migrant program goes away, I can't say 100% for sure that we would still be required to offer services if there's no funding. That one I don't know. But Title III and OLS are 2 separate things. One is funding and one is the mandate to offer EL services.
Well, we wouldn't really be too concerned about that. We would be because of the loss of the service. But to be honest with you, the more salient point right now is personnel, because always looking out for people and their job security. That's what would be, and I mentioned a minute ago, the immediacy is how, what would happen with that migrant program, because that's where the personnel is.
That would be a discussion that Mr. Soto, Mrs. Cox, and Mrs. Samaniego would have to have. I would not personally give advice right here, right now, as to what I would do with that. And I believe, Mr. Soto, it's a .25 or a .3, the migrant position is out of there. But the second position that's in that migrant grant is our student advocate. That one is, I believe, a .25, and that person is also already funded out of Title I, because they are a district coach. So moving their .25 and saying, okay, we're no longer gonna have a migrant advocate, that is something that is very doable. And then just paying the .25 directly from the Title I. The migrant recruiter is the one that you would be concerned about, and that would be their conversation.
But the thing that's cumbersome too is when you look at the proportions paid out of different parts of the budget, what would come first? If you lose the .25 or you lose the 75, does the whole position go away? That's something else that has to be considered. You say, well, we still have that 75, let's say, in the M&O, but the 25 in the migrant goes away, then do you keep the program? And that's the dilemma. That's one of the dilemmas that they're having to struggle with. And I applaud them for having a good contingency. I mean, they really went to work on it. But as things unfold and we see exactly what the specifics are gonna be, I don't think that we really are able to move forward on anything unless we specifically know just exactly what the parameters are gonna be. And we don't know that now. And I think that's why the board needs to give Ms. Samaniego and the administration some guidance as to proceed with that contingency, because when we look at September the 1st, then if they put them all in Title I, and then that money isn't forthcoming and is still held, then how are we gonna reconcile that?
The money is there in Title I. So we have our current 25 fiscal year budget actually contains 3 different separate budgets in there. We had our initial allocation, and then we received what's called waiver funds, which I had discussed earlier at a previous board meeting, were funds from fiscal year 24 that were never given to us. Then we received our second allocation that came in, it was like the second or third week of May. There is money in that Title I grant to support the one Title III EL coach, because I had already written that in there. There should be enough money, because I know they've run the numbers, to support the new teacher induction coach in there, because that is also a professional development person, and that is the set aside 11. The coach that's in there that's funded out partially out of migrant, if that program goes away, that .25, there's plenty of money there, as far as this for fiscal year 26.
No, we know there's plenty of money there. I mean, they've assured us of that. We know the money's there. But logistically, would we have a problem down the road? And that's the thing that we're facing with right now. And I know Ms. Samaniego's pretty confident that she can do it, and she can do it. But again, I go back to the fact that they specifically named those 3 programs. They put the hold on the money for those, specifically those 3 programs. Anybody else, members of the board, any questions or comments
No,
regarding?
I just wanted to mention that we understand how important and how much needed these programs are, but the ramifications that might come down if they cut it, that's my concern. How are we gonna pay it back if we have to pay it back? That's my number 1 concern.
Well, if I may, we wouldn't move forward on putting them under Title I, and that's where Mrs. Moen comes in, if you want to come up, Mrs. Moen, who's our new director, and we had those conversations. Because while Mrs. Herrera closed the grants, submitted the grants, and has, years in that program, Ms. Moen is just starting. So the conversation with Ms. Moen is, I want her to contact her specialist with Title I, and I want her to ask the questions, because we always say, can we get an answer in writing, right? Because if we get an answer in writing, that helps us. And so that is a test that she's been given, and while she is fairly new, she had several months of training with Mrs. Herrera and is very knowledgeable in everything that Mrs. Herrera said. So you, in the discussions we had with you, also is the ability to move those people into those grants and knowing that the Title I, but you are still going to be reaching out to your specialist and seeing, I don't know if you did already.
So good evening, everyone, board president, board members, and administration. I have already sent an email out just asking if I have to move people, if there's any ramifications, kind of getting ready for this meeting. I wanted to kind of get my ducks in a row, so I went ahead and sent the email. It is a Friday, so I don't foresee them answering me right away. And I also sent an email out to our 21st century specialist, because it's a new person. She unfortunately is on vacation, but she should be back Monday, kind of asking a little bit more clarification about especially about the dates for 21st century, and just to kind of know where they're looking at. So I have sent out emails to everyone. I'm just waiting back for responses. I kind of have a deadline for myself. If I don't hear anybody from Tuesday, I'm gonna start making phone calls. So that's kind of where I'm at, just to get some more clarification before, if we have to move them, what does that mean?
Have you actually talked to anybody? Did you talk to the Title I representative? Did you?
Yeah, we've both spoken to Crystal Munger, and this was before the hold, so everything seemed.
Oh, you haven't talked to him since? the
No,
hold? Oh,
and then
okay.
the hold happened July 2nd.
Well, that came,
First or second.
but we
And-
didn't get information
yeah.
from ADE until,
Like-
you got information first from the Catholic school.
Yes, so I got an email.
And we did.
I got an email from Loretto about their funding, asking about this, and I was like, well, we haven't heard anything, so I sent an email out to Crystal Munger. I was like, hey, we got this email from Loretto Catholic School. We're just wondering, are you guys hearing this too? And maybe an hour later, we got communication from ADE saying about the hold, and then she sent me an email. She's like, we just sent out communication. I was like, okay, thank you, but we kind of knew the day before, because we had gotten communication. So I think they were trying to determine what they were going to send out. And I have sent another email to her. She hasn't responded, but I am waiting for that. But we have spoken to her before.
Members of the board?
What makes me uncomfortable is, that we could be held accountable for, or we could get dinged in an audit and have to pay this money back. That is a big one, because I remember the phone call I received from and without outing the name of their school district, that did not follow the Title III rules and regulations. And they were audited and had to pay back. People lost their jobs over it. It was not nice. So that makes me a little uncomfortable.
And I think if I may, going back to that, I think it's when you have the funding, you're saying you're doing something with those funds and Title III, but you're really not.
Right.
And so in this case, the concern, I totally understand the concern. And I want to assure you that we're not moving anybody into Title I. That was not the decision.
Right.
Because we're going to, my hope is that we start the year as planned. If I get more information, that allows Ms. Moen to get some information and feedback from, her Title I director or specialist, and see whatever else guidance comes, because we couldn't move anybody into the grant anyway until that grant gets revised and approved by the director. So if it's not approved by the director, it's not gonna happen. And then I need to come back to you and say, the hold is in effect, and they're doing away with the money. And now the director has said we can't do that, so now we have a decision to make.
Okay.
So I wouldn't do anything
All right.
for now.
So what do you, stay up there, Corey. What do you do with the understandable concern that a staff member might have, though? When they say, I'm part of that program, everything's on hold, what are you gonna do? I mean, those are the things that you're gonna have to grapple with. Very, very interesting. It just kind of compounds the state of everything in education, is the fact that they notified a private school before they notified the public school. I mean, that speaks volumes about not only the state of Arizona, but that's everywhere. But I mean, that's beating a dead horse. Stay up there, Corey. Do you have any questions of Corey, members of the board? No. Mitch? No. Mr. Ramos?
No, I'm good.
Ms. Salchow?
No.
Anything else you wanted to speak about?
No, we will just continue
Anything
working
else
on
you want to
this.
add, Corey, just while you're up there?
No, like I said, we're trying to clean up the Title I grant. I'm getting feedback from all our specialists. I emailed our migrant specialist as well to see if he has any additional information. He sent back a very broad email, kind of like they're waiting too, so he didn't really answer a lot of my questions. We have a conference in a couple of weeks, I think next week, and he says that's still going on in effect, so I'm thinking they maybe know something because they haven't canceled that as of today. And then I also reached out to our Title III specialist, because I did have similar questions. If we don't have Title III funding, what does that mean for OWALIS side, like the ELD portion? So I do have emails out, I'm just waiting for responses.
Okay, thank you, guys. Thank you, Debbie, for being here as well, doing double duty. So, members of the board, we kind of got a good tenor of what the status is. Any afterthoughts or any comments you want to make? Ms. Samaniego, do you kind of have a direction to go in?
Yes, well, obviously, as I want to reiterate, we're not moving anybody into Title I. Those 4 positions, we're not moving them. My hope is that we start the year with the positions that we have funded out of those positions, as the direction from AD said, continue with operations. Do look at your other funding sources to see what you can do, because we're not gonna be reimbursing you at this moment until further notice. So with that being said, obviously I am concerned about staff. And so your question is, what do you do with staff? And I think after this meeting, and next week, we need to be open and honest, with our individuals that are being affected by this. And so, without putting people in panic, but saying, we need to have that conversation. And we were waiting for this board meeting so that we could do that. And so if, we hear from ADE, and grants management that this is a possibility, and that because the Title I was rewritten, I feel very comfortable, because professional development is part of Title I. So it's not like, the transfer of the capital money over, which we know it was an allowable expense, but then there was no caveat saying, oh, it's gonna be an audit finding, and then it was a a little disclaimer. So the nice thing about grants is that you don't do anything until that grant is approved. And so that's the accountability. And so we can't move anybody unless that grant is approved by the director. And so, I would then come back to you and say, this is where we're at. Do I have your guidance and permission to move forward? Okay.
Mr. Soto, being the money man, what do you think? Any thoughts about all of this?
Well, again, like you just said, I mean, it's gonna be a hard year. I mean, definitely. We haven't even started school yet, and we're having all of these conversations, which is sad. But again, I'm just gonna say that we're here for the kids. We're here for those families, right? And we're gonna do whatever possible, you know, to keep those services to them. It will be unfortunate that we won't get the funding for that, but again, it's and I understand the role as a board member and being the, you know, making responsible decisions and fiscally responsible decisions. But again, I believe we have a good plan for worst case scenario, and again, I want you to keep that in mind. That yes, sometimes we have hard times, especially financially, but we have to think about how we're affecting the kids with those decisions. And I'm just gonna give you the CFO response. Sometimes getting audit findings is okay, but again, it's about the kids. That's all I'm gonna say.
Ms. Cox is former grants director and now in HR, which deals with personnel. Do you have any thing you'd like to add to the conversation?
Well, I'm concerned about the employees, first and foremost, because that will impact our kids, you know. So that I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about the grants, but I'm not concerned about being able to move those people into Title I. I think because the migrant piece of it is called Title I-C. It's already in Title I. And that position is already partially funded in Title I. I personally don't feel that that's going to be a problem, moving the professional development, the Title II into Title I. I don't foresee that being a problem. So I think that our contingency plan, what we've met on, I think it'll work as long as the director approves and we have something in writing from them that says, you know, you have our blessing and go ahead and do it. But I am concerned about staff, and we had said, we've been saying things are gonna get tough, you know, things are gonna get tough, and every day we're dealing with something. So, you know, keeping us up at night quite a bit.
Well, get that documented, and I think we'll all breathe a lot easier
Yes.
if you do.
Yes.
And hopefully you will. That way it doesn't affect anybody personally. All right, anything else you want to add?
No, so
regarding
what I
that?
will do is, we have our regular board meeting in August. Maybe we'll have more information. I will update you regularly as I get information, and, you know, hoping for the best, and we'll do the best we can.
In closing, Mr.
Well, we'll
Smith?
have a special.
I have nothing else.
Ms. Sancho, Mr. Lindeman?
Sounds like our contingency plan is a prudent one, and so I would go with that, but wait on any action.
Mr. Ramos?
I think I said it.
Okay, great, thanks. All right, moving to item K, discussion action to adopt the district annual expenditure budget for fiscal year 2025, 2026. Mr. Soto, do you want to add anything to what you said at the budget hearing?
No, again, all of that's based on last year's numbers. Once we have and bring back the budget revision, then we'll have more accurate and exact numbers, not just only for the M&O, but also for all the title grants amounts. So that's about it. I mean, I don't know if you have specific questions.
Can I get a motion to approve the budget?
I move to approve the adoption of the annual district expenditure budget for 25-26.
Second.
By Mr. Smith. Members of the board, discussion, questions?
I had one one question. Previously, Mr. Soto had said that the new per student funding would be taken care of in September, and that was my question. Are we building the budget on the 5,013 or the 5113?
Good question. Again, what was presented and been approved is based on last year's per pupil allocation. We have everything reconciled there. Of course, we'll start working with the budget based on the $5,113.26, correct? So again, once we have the new forms and once we have all of the information that we need from the state, we'll bring the budget revision in September with the new forms, with the new per pupil allocation. That's gonna be approved by the board. That one will also include the new property tax in there too.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Ramos? Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Elcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Breen?
Yes, and before I call for adjournment, I want to thank everybody that was here tonight, especially on those very two important items, the one on the cell phones, the electronic devices, and especially the discussion on the federal programs, because the more information you give us, hopefully a better decision can be made based on all the knowledge in this room. Entertain a motion to adjourn
Move to adjourn.
by Mr. Lindeman, second.
Second.
By Ms. Salcho. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Stand